Well, howdy folks, and welcome to the first video at Impera multiplayer battle we've had on this channel. This was against the Hellene, and he gave me a run for my money here, and I wanted to show that off. Before we really get into the actual battle though, I wanted to show you, we got some unit comps here. So, first off on my side, we're looking at a pretty standard Spartan army. I elected to go for the pikes since I knew my opponent was also going to be going for pikes, being, Macedonian and whatnot. However, of course, Spartan pikes generally will not be superior to Macedonian pikes. They're just usually going to be better in morale. We've got the Thoracitai Spartan hoplites, which are probably the best hoplites in the game, barring some elite general units. The main difference I've got in my composition is quite a few Sciritae, a very light swordsman unit. They have 3 speed, lots and lots of attack, and 60 morale, which is pretty darn good for what they are. Some of the best for that kind of unit. They also have Vanguard deployment, and they can move unseen in any terrain, which is huge. Basically, in a multiplayer battle like this, they're going to pop up suddenly when you don't expect them to. My opponent, however, has a good assortment of cavalry. He has a strong advantage in cavalry. Just an assortment of some ranged and some melee cav, a couple different kinds of lancers, couple different kinds of archers, some slingers, some peltists, some axe units, and a solid 5 pikes. I actually outnumber him on the pike segment, but of course his pikes are much higher quality. I believe those are Chalcospidae Thoracidae, I do believe. So if we look at the opening of the battle here, it's a pretty standard setup. He's deployed a little further to the left of the field than I have. I deployed smack dab in the middle. I don't tend to adjust my deployment. I tend to be fairly straightforward and rely on just basic tactics. Now what I've done here is I've positioned a couple of Sciritae way near the freaking border of the map here. Here they are, hanging out, chilling. And my hope is that my opponent will be foolish enough to come into range of my cavalry and my hoplites, and I'll be able to squish his cavalry, because I know he'll have the cavalry advantage. I'll never beat Macedonian cavalry with Spartan cavalry. Doesn't matter what I do. So I'm not going to worry about, beating them. On this side, I've just lined up all 4 of my Sciritae. This is basically a deterrent. Anyone who knows Sciritae knows that they have javelins on them, and no one's going to want to rush in all of their cavalry into a swarm of javelins. So I'm hoping that, by their sheer numbers, this will deter enemy cavalry from coming to this side, for fear of being skewered. Pincushioned, rather. And of course in the front, I've got a huge just line of pikes. The weaknesses of this army is, of course, that it can be pretty easily outmaneuvered on one side by cavalry to get around and hit my dudes in the back, so that's always something to be concerned about. On my opponent's side, we can't really see everything he's got yet, so let's go ahead and hit play. We can see his pikes. They are indeed Thoracidae Chalcospidae. And he's got his pelty type swordsy units. He's got those on the left. Looks like he's lined up his missiles in the front. Unfortunately for him, I'm not here looking to do any kind of skirmishing. So we're going to be aggressive. As soon as the battle starts, I push my army forward. And generally, throughout this battle, because I know my opponent probably has me on ranged and in cavalry, just by nature of being Macedon, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to be trying to force him to make mistakes, force him to use micro, just by making as many moves as I can. Every move I make, he has to respond to in some way. If he doesn't respond, I'll snipe him. Various units, I have that power. But if he does respond, he may open up somewhere where he's not paying attention. I may be able to take advantage of that. So here I've immediately pushed up my Podzormoi, my medium missile cav, and we're hoping that he'll respond to that. He does indeed respond by bringing over these Basilikoi Ile, if that's pronounced correctly, which is a very powerful missile cav unit. They do have some javelins, but they also have extremely heavy army. Heavy army, really? They have extremely heavy armor. God, English. How do I do it? Anyway, these guys can crush like both of my cav units single-handedly. They're terrifying. I am scared of them. But as long as he can pin them down, and he's also adjusting a little on his side. Looks like he probably moved a little smidge over to match my formation a bit better. Here's his cav moving up a little, so he's put his Thessalian Lancers and his Macedonian Hippeus on that side. Now I am actually going to move up my Sciritae in a minute here a bit. He can't see them yet, even though they're right in front of him. In a normal unit, he'd be able to see. On this side as well, I believe my Sciritae are just technically out of sight at the moment. If I recall correctly, during this point of the fight, he actually could not see these. So he probably thought he had me overlapped on this flank. Although I guess he could probably see my hoplites. Hoplites here are just being used as anchors to discourage flanking, for the most part, and then maybe to fill gaps in the middle later. So now we've got him in skirmish mode. We've actually successfully drawn out his cavalry a little bit on this flank. And of course, he thinks he's pretty much completely safe here, which he more or less is, but my Sciritae are moving up, and they are still not spotted. But in doing some micro to advance my army, as you can see, I'm advancing them right into his face right now. I did neglect my Podremoy here, so he's going to get some excellent javelin shots on them. And he will rout them with his Basilikoi Ile and his commander unit of Hiare Ile. Look at them. They look amazing. Understandable. We expected that we would lose those. My Sciritae have just popped into existence for him. I haven't given them orders yet, but as you can see, I'm continuing my move order. My pikemen are now walking. And here come my Sciritae out of the woodworks. They should be popping in for him anytime soon. Now, there you go. So he's advancing these Basilikoi. I'm pulling them back, and I'm hoping I'll catch him out with those Sciritae while he's not paying attention. The main lines are engaging at this point. And I sort of just tossed some of my Sciritae into melee right here. Just, again, sort of hoping to make him make some moves. He was too scared to pull his cavalry in to immediately attack my Sciritae, which is probably wise. So that's going to give me some flanking opportunity. Mostly, my opponent is managing his forces on this flank, trying to win this left side. So here he gets a perfect back charge here on my Sciritae. This would rout most units outright, I think. But again, Sciritae with 60 morale, they can handle themselves even in an inferior position. So here we go. Here come my Podremoy for a back charge on his Basilikoi Ile, and these will actually win. I will win against these Basilikoi Ile and rout them in a few seconds. He did get these Sarissa Lancers over here at one point. They didn't fare too well. Here's me getting a back charge on these Axemen. Axemen, of course, are very good for a few things. There we go. So that's what happened to his Sarissas. I'd forgotten. So he had moved them in for a back charge on my pikemen, but I noticed it in time. I turned my pikes around. These are light shot cavalry. They break in a matter of moments. And here comes my Spartan hoplites to assist the pike unit. I may forget to turn them back around, though. I probably do. I was quite busy with micro myself, watching these flanks here. I'm chasing down his cavalry with some of my Spartans. My Spartan hoplites, and I do actually catch about 6 of these cav out here. So again, we're just making tons of moves in every direction. There we go, we routed his Basilikoi Ile. They came back pretty quick, but I don't think my opponent noticed for a bit. And we're chasing down his general for a second, who is a little scared, doesn't want to lose his general. And now we're gonna race over to this left flank, because as you can see, things have gotten a little chaotic in the infantry battle. I have lost a lot of my left wing here. He actually has the advantage with these Thoracitae and Thoracitae Chakaspides right here. I have a huge gap. I'm repositioning my back units of Hoplites that I pulled out near the beginning of the fight. And I really need to get these infantry units engaged in the infantry fight. I've actually deployed my general to plug this big gap in the middle. The Spartan general unit is extremely super powerful. In phalanx mode, the general goes to the back, and he's basically unkillable back there. But we are losing the pike fight severely. Every pike unit is getting outmatched. However, I did manage to rout some of his, I believe some of his axemen on this flank that allowed me to pull a Skirite back and get a side charge on one of these phalanx units. Here he caught my missile cavalry with his own cavalry. He pulled these Macedonian Hippeus off of this flank and left only one of his cavalry on that flank to handle me. But he did effectively destroy one of my cav units, my last cav unit, giving him, you know, undoubtedly a huge cavalry advantage. And of course, he still has a huge missile advantage. Here's the TAC map, so you can sort of see what's going on. The lines are still more or less clean. The left flank is a huge freaking mess. On the right flank, I have the advantage. On the left, he has the advantage for the most part. So I'm really hoping to get around here and crack his shell here, because these pikes are just, as you can see, they're just cutting me like Swiss cheese. So I do manage to get a hoplite back here. I do manage to get a hoplite in this back line. Unfortunately, my opponent, being intelligent, immediately targets them with slingers, peltis, everything he can throw at them in the back, and that will wear them down quickly. However, my Skirite and my unit of hoplites over here has arrived on the battlefield on the left flank, and they're immediately icing these Cretan archers, and then they're going to move on and hopefully do some more work elsewhere. While all this is going on, of course, I am getting cycle charged by his Macedonian Hippeus and his general unit, and basically just every time he does that, I'm going to immediately respond, turn my Skirite around, and countercharge, so that his charges are less effective, and I continually do this throughout the fight. And the idea is to just hopefully whittle him down and lose a few less units every time he does one of those charges. My Skirite have broken free on that left flank over there. There go his Thessalians. So he's got 3 cav units on me right now. His Hira Ile there, his command unit, did get stuck in, lost a few men, which is always concerning when a cavalry unit is your general unit, because he might just die at any second. He did manage to get the Basilikoi Ile returned from the fight and delivered a decisive back charge to my Spartan hoplites, and that did take them down. So that was a pretty smart move there, and that definitely worked. However, some weird shit has happened here, and my Spartan Hippeus has actually broken through the flank. I think because he pulled his pikes out, thinking I wouldn't notice, but I chased them down with my Hippeus. And now we've got his... We're technically surrounded, but we've also surrounded him. So he surrounded us with some of his pikes, we've surrounded him with some Skirite and my Hippeus unit. And really the question here is who can outlast who? And you would think it would be him. Again, we're just going to immediately respond to any charges so we lose less troops. So the whole battle is just a freaking mess. There are no lines anymore. We've got a knot of Skirite here, just trying to desperately hold against various cavalry units. Every time he pulls back with his cavalry, I'm going to rush my Skirite somewhere, just to do something. On the left flank, we've got multiple knots here. We've got a knot of hoplites and some pikemen trying to desperately hold off against his Thracidae. And here we've got a knot of his pikemen. However, some of my own pikemen have actually returned from the fight, from routing earlier, that high morale coming into play again. And they're going to rush back in and hopefully do some good. There you go, my Skirite have broken free from the melee again, and I'm immediately going to push them somewhere. I don't care if I take charges here, I don't care if I lose one. That's worth it, because these units, I use them a lot like there's some sort of footman cavalry. And here you go, he's going to sacrifice his slingers there. I will allow 2 of my Skirite to get caught, but I'm going to rush one past, if I can. Everyone's thinking about routing, but we did manage to get his Lucaspides. Those are his hoplites there. We're managing to get some routes here and there. The big routes, of course, are on the pikemen. There goes one of them right there. That's huge for us. That frees up 4 units for us. Meanwhile, I'm threatening his cavalry with my pikes. I'm giving him a choice. You want to attack my pikes here? You want to attack my pikes here? What do you want to do, buddy? My Hippeus, as expected, holding strong. Due to routing those Leucospides, we have freed up 2 of my hoplite units. We're going to leave these pikemen behind to fight that Thoracite unit by themselves. They won't win. There goes another charge into my Sciritae. They're still eager, though. They're close to the general. High morale. They're still working on it. And here goes double back charge into 2 pike units that have been engaged for quite some time. They're both winded or tired. And there you go, wavering at 200 men and shaken at 245. I got my Sciritae free from this knot, and we've got them surrounded. Those Chalcospides are freaking out and breaking formation real bad. The problem is, once they come into melee range with my general, he's gonna slaughter them in close range. My returning pikes from the route, we're gonna block them up here. They've still got some units here. We're wavering on this flank, but we're gonna make sure that he can't do any good cavalry attacks here. We're just gonna block up right there all together. You want to do an attack, you're gonna have to come into some pikes for it. So that routed both of his Thoracite Chalcospides, and this is the turning point for the battle. And as you can see, we have some solid knots while he has sort of been pushed out to the edges. He's got some returning units here and there, but we have a huge advantage now. We have the freedom to form up however we need to form up to win. Which we shall do. I'm going to speed up time just a bit here. Not sure what he actually does with these Thessalians. I was not paying attention to the section of the fight. I was too busy reforming my army. Ah. Nope, I was paying attention. And I get that turnaround again in time. This is from my old Rome 1 days, playing as the Greeks in Rome 1. People would get these surround charges on me with cavalry, and I would just turn my hoplites around before they hit, and they would deal with the brunt of a full pike slaughter. Not quite as effective in Rome 2, but as you can see, still pretty good. Still pretty good. I still won that. So at this point, my opponent GG's me. He says, good game, and I agree. And basically, we sort of shoot the shit for a while and talk about how the battle went and how much, in my case, my ass almost got beat. My opponent mentions that basically my Sciritae really saved the fight for me, and I agree. Again, light swordsman units getting hit by cavalry repeatedly and just refusing to die, refusing to rout. I would also note that if you look at my hoplites and the lack of casualties on them, they refuse to rout as well. Extremely high morale from the Spartan roster. It's probably one of their biggest benefits. They have the best hoplites, and their pikes are mediocre, but also have high morale. So really just the morale overall really does it for them. You can really survive some things that you maybe shouldn't survive. And so he's reformed what's left of his army, and he actually gets some parting blows off on me here. I'm not paying attention here. I don't even know if my men are actually in pike formation. And with his Macedonian Hippeus, he actually routs one of my pike units there. That hurts. That hurts my pride a little. But, of course, defeat is inevitable here. We just have such a huge advantage on him that we're just going to mob his units. And just in time, whittle them down. But as you can see, my opponent, even at the end here, these small mixed unit tactics, he's targeting the proper units that he should be targeting. Maybe being a little bit careless in the charges there, you know, charging them head on. But as you can see, in this case, committing to that frontal charge there actually works. He actually does take those Sciritae down, both of them, at once, just with a decisive charge from the front. And really, if my opponent were to change anything about the way he fought this battle, I would definitely say he should have pinned my Sciritae more. there were parts of the battle there where he gave my Skirite a total breather by pulling all 3 or 4 of his cav units out of the fight. He should have committed to maybe leaving 1 unit in the fight at all times so that I couldn't escape, because my Skirite having that freedom of motion is a large part of what won me the fight. Every time he pulled back with all of his cav, I just immediately went and got rear charges. I immediately went and got side charges, and that's what really took down these really excellent Thorakite Chalcaspides. But that's just my opinion, of course. You never know. Hindsight is 20/20. On my end, I just needed better management in general. Look at the slaughter here. It's pretty nasty. Pretty nasty there. At this point, my opponent dismounts his last cavalry unit and assembles them for a glory charge of sorts. He attempts to. Unfortunately, they will rout. I actually pull up my general to you know, honor the glory charge here. In a moment here, you'll see me pull back my army and just pull up the general, but unfortunately, the match ends right about now. There they go. So let's look at the stats here. It was a Pyrrhic victory. Yes, I almost lost. That was extremely close. And anyone who watches my Let's Plays knows I'm not the best tactician ever. I'm better at strategy than I am at tactics, and even then, I'm not the best. So if we look at some stats here, a couple of my pike units really stand out, did really, really well. You can see some of my hoplite units just crushed, pound for pound. But it definitely is worth noting, if you look at my Skirite, their performance versus all of my other units. It was the Skirite that really won the fight. I mean, we're looking at, what, 600, 830, about 1,000, 1,200 kills. A full half of the losses my opponent took were from my Skirite. About half. Now, if I had had more hoplites, I don't know, they might have performed just as well. But here's the thing. These Skirite cost half of what the Thorakite hoplites do. And they mostly outperformed them. I lost a lot of them. They're more expendable. But they worked. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I've got more multiplayer battles on the way. Let me know what you think, what you would have done in the battle, and y'all have a good one. Bye-bye now.